The wind that morning carried dust across the small Texas town like it was trying to erase it from the map. Dry roads, faded houses, and a silence that felt heavier than noise itself. Inside one of those houses, Ava Reynolds stood in front of a cracked mirror. Not a soldier yet, not even close. Just a 19-year-old girl trying to convince herself she wasn't afraid. Her hair was tied back tightly. Her hands were steady, but only because she forced them to be. On the bed behind her sat a small backpack and a folded paper that had changed her life 6 months ago. Her acceptance letter to the United States Army. It had arrived like a promise. Now it felt like a warning. One, a choice made in silence. Ava didn't come from a military family. No proud traditions, no uniforms hanging in closets. Just struggle. Her father had left when she was 12. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner, coming home exhausted, hands trembling from holding trays all day. Ava learned early that life didn't wait for anyone. If you wanted something, you fought for it. That's what led her here. Not patriotism speeches. Not dreams of glory. Just survival. College had been too expensive. Dead-end jobs were swallowing her friends one by one, and somewhere between exhaustion and frustration, she saw a recruitment poster. Be stronger than your circumstances. That line stuck in her head like a challenge she couldn't ignore. So she signed. And now the decision was real. Too real. Too the goodbye that didn't feel like one. Her mother stood in the kitchen when Ava walked out. No dramatic tears. Just quiet understanding, the kind that hurts more. You sure about this? Her mother asked, not looking up from the sink. Ava hesitated. This was the moment she had rehearsed in her head 100 times. But rehearsals don't help when your chest feels tight. I have to try, Ava said. Her mother finally turned. For a second, her face softened. The army doesn't go easy on people like us. Ava swallowed. People like us survive anyway. That earned a faint, tired smile. Her mother wiped her hands on a towel and walked over. She fixed Ava's collar, like she was still 10 years old going to school. Then don't come back the same, she whispered. Ava didn't understand what that meant yet. But she would. 3. Arrival at the unknown. The bus ride felt endless. Every mile away from home was a mile closer to something she couldn't see. When the gates finally appeared, everything changed. Barbed wire. Tall fences. Soldiers moving like they already belonged to a different species. Sharp, fast, controlled. Ava stepped off the bus with other recruits. No one smiled. No one spoke. A man in uniform walked past them slowly, looking at each face like he was already deciding who would break first. Welcome to hell, he said calmly. No shouting. No drama. Just truth. Ava's stomach tightened. This was the beginning. 4. First contact with discipline. The first hours erased individuality. Hair cut shorter. Clothes replaced. Names almost meaningless. They became numbers, voices, reactions. Everything moved fast, too fast for thinking. And then came the instructor. Sergeant Cole. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You will run when I say run, he said. You will stop when I say stop. You will eat when I allow it. You will sleep when I decide you've earned it. He paused, scanning them. And right now, none of you have earned anything. Ava stood in line, trying to steady her breathing. Then it began. Push-ups until arms failed. Running until lungs burned. Standing still until legs shook uncontrollably. The body gave up before the mind accepted it. That was the point. 5. The first collapse. It happened on the second day. Not a dramatic fall. Just a slow breakdown. Ava's legs refused to respond during a drill run. Her vision blurred at the edges. The world tilted slightly, like it was losing balance with her. "Keep moving," someone shouted behind her. But her body didn't listen. She dropped to one knee. Dust hit her palms. For a second, she thought she might actually pass out. Boots stopped near her. Sergeant Cole. He didn't help her. He didn't comfort her. He looked down like he was observing a problem in a system. "You done already?" he asked. Ava tried to stand. Failed. A quiet laugh came from somewhere in the group. Not cruel, not kind. Just reality. Ava's throat tightened. She forced herself up again, shaking. "I'm fine," she said. Cole leaned slightly closer. "No, you're not." A pause. Then the words that stayed with her longer than anything else. "Good, now prove you belong here." He walked away, and something inside her shifted. Not strength. Not yet. But refusal. 6. The night that broke the silence. That night the barracks were too quiet. Everyone lay in their beds like machines turned off but not resting. Ava stared at the ceiling. Her body hurt in places she didn't know existed. But pain wasn't the worst part. It was doubt. Why did I come here? What if I'm not strong enough? Across the room, someone whispered through tears. Another recruit was crying quietly, trying not to be heard. Ava turned her head slightly. No one spoke. No one helped. That was the rule here. You carried your own weight, or you didn't survive. She closed her eyes. But sleep didn't come. Instead, memories did. Her mother's tired hands. Her old room. The life she left behind. And then the question that cut through everything. If I quit now, what was it all for? 7. The first lesson nobody taught her. The next morning came without mercy. More drills. More shouting. More exhaustion. Ava's muscles were already screaming before the day began. But something was different. She didn't stop when she wanted to. She didn't slow down when her body begged her to. She just kept going. Not because she felt strong. Because she was afraid of what stopping meant. Sergeant Cole noticed. He didn't say anything. But he watched her longer than before. Like he was waiting for something to either break or solidify. 8. A moment that did look important, but was. During a break, Ava sat on the ground, breathing hard. A recruit beside her, Marcus, tossed her a water bottle. "You're not from a military family, are you?" he asked. Ava shook her head. He smirked slightly. "Figured, people like you either quit early or last too long." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," he paused, watching the instructors in the distance, "the ones who last too long don't come out the same." Ava didn't respond. But she remembered her mother's words. Don't come back the same. Now she understood they weren't advice. They were prophecy. 9. The edge of becoming something else. That evening, training didn't stop when it should have. Rain started falling. Cold, heavy, relentless. They were ordered to keep running. Mud swallowed their boots. Breathing became sharper. Bodies slowed. And one by one, recruits began to fall behind. Ava felt her legs slipping. Her mind screamed at her to stop. But something deeper, something stubborn kept her upright. She wasn't fast. She wasn't strong. But she refused to disappear into the ground like everyone else who gave up. Sergeant Cole stood at the edge of the field, watching. Ava passed him once. He said nothing. But for the first time, his eyes lingered. Not on her weakness. On her refusal to submit to it. 10. End of part 1. The first crack in the wall. That night, Ava collapsed onto her bed. Not from failure, from endurance. Her body felt like it no longer belonged to her. But something inside had changed. She wasn't the same girl who had stepped off the bus. Not even close. She stared at her hands in the dim light. They were shaking, but they were still hers. And somewhere deep in her mind, a thought formed, quiet but firm. If this is what breaks people, then I will learn how to break it back. Outside, the wind moved across the base again. But now it didn't feel like it was erasing her. It felt like it was testing her. And she was still here. The rain had stopped, but the ground still remembered it. Mud clung to boots. Air smelled like wet earth and exhaustion. The camp looked unchanged from a distance, but inside it something was shifting every day. Ava Reynolds was starting to understand something no one had explained. Training wasn't about strength. It was about erasing the version of you that gives up. One morning doesn't mean fresh start. There was no comfort in mornings anymore. No slow wake-up. No softness. Just a whistle that cut through sleep like a blade. UP. Ava's eyes snapped open before her mind caught up. Her body already knew the command. That was the first change she had noticed in herself. She reacted before she thought. Outside, recruits formed lines under gray skis. Sergeant Cole stood waiting like he had never moved from yesterday. Today, he said calmly, you will learn what failure feels like. No explanation. No mercy. Just direction. 2. The body starts to argue back. The drills intensified. Not harder in obvious ways, but longer, heavier, more relentless. Ava's shoulders ached constantly now, like they had forgotten what rest felt like. Her knees were bruised. Her hands were rough, split in places from rope climbs and crawling exercises. But the worst part wasn't visible. It was inside. Fatigue didn't leave anymore. It stayed. Like a second heartbeat. During a weapons carry drill, her arms gave out halfway through a rotation. The rifle slipped. Not fully, but enough. Again, Cole's voice cut instantly. Ava reset her stance, jaw tight. Again. It slipped again. Laughter didn't come from Cole. It came from silence. That was worse. 3. Isolation begins quietly. It wasn't official. No one announced it. But Ava felt it. In group runs, she was placed at the back. In drills, she was corrected more often than others. In conversations, people stopped including her unless necessary. Not hatred. Not friendship. Just separation. One evening, Marcus walked beside her briefly. You're getting noticed, he said. Good or bad, Ava asked. He shrugged. Depends how long you last. Then he walked ahead again. Ava stayed behind. Not because she was weak. Because she was still learning where to put her strength. 4. The injury no one waits for. It happened during obstacle training. A high wall, wet wood, slippery grips. Ava reached the top halfway through the course. Her fingers locked onto the edge. For a moment she felt it, that small victory. Then her foot slipped. Her body dropped. Not far enough to be fatal. Far enough to hurt. She hit the ground hard. Air left her chest instantly. For a few seconds, everything went quiet. Then pain arrived late, as if it had to find her first. A medic checked her quickly. Move, he said after a short look. That's it, Ava whispered, still on the ground. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She stood up anyway. Because that's what everyone did. 5. The lesson of not being picked up. That night her arm throbbed. Not broken, but damaged enough to remind her every second. She sat on her bunk, staring at it. No sympathy, no break, no pause in training. Ava finally asked Marcus quietly. What happens if someone can't continue? He didn't look surprised by the question. They get sent home, he said. And if they don't want to go, they don't get a choice. That sentence stayed in her head longer than anything else that day. No choice. That was the rule. 6. Humiliation has its own rhythm. The next days were worse. Not physically, emotionally. During a timed drill, Ava missed a command sequence. Not badly. Not dramatically. Just enough to be noticed. Stop, Sergeant Cole said. The entire group froze. Ava stood alone in the center of the field. Explain, Cole said. She tried. Words came out uneven. Wrong order. Too slow. Cole didn't interrupt. He just let her finish, failing in front of everyone. Then he said, again, but this time, remember you're not alone. The implication was clear. She was holding others back. That weight landed harder than any physical drill. 7. The breaking point starts small. That night, Ava didn't eat much. Not because she couldn't. Because she didn't feel hunger. Fatigue changes appetite. It changes everything. She stared at her tray. Then at the room. Everyone else eating in silence. No one looked at her directly. Not hostility. Just distance. Ava suddenly realized something uncomfortable. In this place, people didn't rise together. They endured separately. She went back to her bunk early. Sleep still didn't come easily. 8. The voice that appears when you're tired enough. Around midnight, Ava woke suddenly. Not from sound. From thought. You don't belong here. She blinked at the ceiling. The barracks were quiet. That voice wasn't real, but it felt real enough. It wasn't fear. It was exhaustion speaking in her own tone. She sat up slowly, looked at her bruised hands, and for the first time since arriving, she didn't argue back immediately. That scared her more than pain, because hesitation was new, and new things were dangerous here. 9. A conversation that changes nothing, but changes everything. The next morning, Marcus caught her during formation. You're slipping, he said quietly. I know. That's not what I mean. Ava looked at him. He lowered his voice further. I mean mentally, not physically. She didn't answer right away. Because he was right. And admitting it made it more real. I'm fine, she finally said. Marcus shook his head slightly. That's what everyone says right before they go home. Ava's jaw tightened. I'm not going home. He studied her for a moment. Then stop waiting to feel ready, he said. That's not how this works. Then he stepped away. Simple words. Heavy impact. 10. The drill that removes pride. That afternoon, Sergeant Cole changed the structure of training. Pairs. Stronger recruits assigned to weaker ones. Ava was paired with someone faster, stronger, more experienced. He didn't even look at her at first. Keep up, he said. That was the instruction. Nothing else. They ran. She struggled. He didn't slow down. She fell behind. He didn't wait. And that's when she understood the point. It wasn't teamwork. It was pressure. To see who adapts and who collapses. Ava pushed harder. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But she stayed behind him. Barely. 11. The moment she almost stops. Mid-run, her vision blurred. The ground tilted slightly. Her body reached a threshold. That moment where stopping feels more logical than continuing. Her feet slowed. One step, then another. The recruit ahead didn't turn back. Didn't care. That's when Ava almost let go. Almost. Then she remembered something simple. No one was coming to save her. Not here. Not ever. So she ran again. Not fast. Not clean. But forward. 12. End of part 2. The edge becomes clear. That night, Ava didn't collapse into bed the same way anymore. She sat down slowly, like someone who had learned the weight of every movement. Her body was more damaged than when she arrived, but something else had formed alongside it. Something quieter, harder, not confidence, not yet, but endurance that had started to turn into identity. Outside, the base lights flickered in the dark. Ava stared at her reflection in the metal bunk frame. She looked like herself, but not entirely, like something was slowly rewriting the edges of who she used to be. And for the first time, she didn't ask if she could survive tomorrow. She asked something different. How far can I go before I finally change completely? The base had stopped feeling like a place. It felt like a system, a machine that never turned off, never slowed down, and never cared who was inside it. Ava Reynolds no longer counted days. She measured time in exhaustion, in commands, in moments where her body wanted to quit but didn't get permission. Something inside her had changed. Not fully, not permanently, but enough that she no longer recognized easy as a possibility. 1. The new normal is still pain. Morning drills came earlier now. Or maybe they always had. Ava just noticed less. Move. The voice of Sergeant Cole cut through the cold air like a switch flipping reality on. Ava was already standing before her mind fully woke up. That was new. Not strength. Conditioning. The kind that rewrites reactions before thoughts can interfere. The recruits lined up. No one spoke. No one needed to. Cole walked in front of them slowly. You are not here to feel good, he said. You are here to function under pressure. His eyes passed over Ava. It lingered half a second longer than before. Not approval. Not criticism. Observation. That was worse. 2. The drill that does end cleanly. Today's exercise was navigation under fatigue. Rucksacks full weight, uneven terrain. No fixed time limit. Just a rule. Keep moving until told otherwise. The group started together, then slowly broke apart. Ava fell into her rhythm. Step, breath. Pain in shoulders. Burn in legs. But now it was familiar. Familiar meant manageable. Marcus passed her once on a slope. You still here, he muttered. Ava didn't respond. She didn't have the breath for it. But she stayed behind him anyway. That was becoming her pattern. Not leading. Not falling. Just refusing to disappear. 3. The first real collapse around her. Halfway through the course, another recruit went down. Not dramatic. Just sudden. Knees gave out, body stopped responding. He didn't get up immediately. That was the mistake. Cole arrived within seconds. He stood over him. You done? He asked calmly. The recruit nodded weakly. Say it, Cole said. The recruit hesitated. I can't continue. Cole stepped back. Then you are done. No anger. No sympathy. Just conclusion. Ava watched as the recruit was escorted away. No applause. No reaction. Just removal. Like he had been part of the system briefly and was now no longer required. Something in her stomach tightened. Not fear. Understanding. 4. The quiet shift inside Ava. That night, Ava didn't speak much. She sat on her bunk, cleaning her gear slowly. Marcus noticed. "You thinking too much?" he asked. Ava didn't look up. "Maybe. That's dangerous here." "I know." He sat down across from her briefly. "You're different than when you arrived," he said. Ava paused. "Good or bad?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Neither, just different." That answer bothered her more than criticism would have, because it meant she was changing in ways she couldn't fully see. 5. Sleep becomes a short break, not rest. Sleep no longer reset anything. It only paused awareness. Ava woke up tired most mornings, but she learned something useful. You don't need to feel ready to function. You just need to move. And so she moved. Through drills. Through pain. Through repetition. Her body adapted before her emotions could protest. That was the hidden rule of the camp. Adapt or fall behind. There was no third option. 6. The instructor who stopped shouting. Something changed in Sergeant Cole's behavior. Not obvious. Not verbal. Subtle. He stopped correcting Ava as often. Not because she improved dramatically, but because she started self-correcting. During a formation drill, she adjusted her stance before he spoke. He noticed, didn't react, but his silence meant something. Ava felt it. Not pride, but pressure, because now she was being watched differently. Not as someone struggling, but as someone being evaluated. 7. The exercise that tests mental limits. The next training phase was designed differently. No physical objective, just stress control. Recruits were placed under timed decision-making drills while physically exhausted. Ava's mind felt like it was working through fog. Commands came fast. Too fast. Choose route A or B. Evacuate or hold position. Prioritize injured or supply drop. No time to think deeply. Only respond. She got one wrong. Then another. Not because she didn't know. Because she was tired. And tired minds hesitate. Cole's voice cut in. Speed matters more than comfort. Ava adjusted immediately. Less thinking. More deciding. Something clicked. Not clarity. Efficiency. 8. The moment of small failure that feels huge. During a rope climb drill, Ava slipped again. Not far, but visible. She caught herself halfway down. The group noticed. No one laughed. That was worse. Silence means everyone saw it clearly. Marcus passed by after. "You okay?" he asked. Ava nodded. But she didn't feel okay. Because failure here didn't disappear. It stayed in memory. In observation. In evaluation. Every mistake became part of who you were considered to be. 9. The inner voice changes tone. That night, Ava sat alone longer than usual. Her body hurt in familiar ways now. But her thoughts had changed. Not "I can't." Not "this is too much." Something else was forming. "I can adjust." That was new. Not confidence. Adaptation. The realization that survival here wasn't about resisting pain, but absorbing it and continuing anyway. She flexed her bruised fingers. They responded slower than before. But they responded. That was enough. 10. The turning point drill. 2 days later, the recruits were pushed into a long endurance course. No breaks. No fixed endpoint. Just movement under supervision. Hours passed. Then more hours. Ava's legs went numb at some point. She stopped noticing terrain. Stopped noticing weather. Stopped noticing time. Only rhythm remained. Step. Breathe. Step. Somewhere ahead, Marcus slowed. Ava passed him without thinking. He looked surprised. That surprised her more than anything. Because she didn't feel faster. She just wasn't stopping. 11. Recognition without words. At the end of the course, recruits collapsed where they stood. Ava sat down slowly. Her hands shook slightly. Sergeant Cole walked past them. He stopped near her. Just briefly. Looked down. Then continued walking. No praise. No correction. But something had changed. Ava felt it instinctively. She wasn't being evaluated as a struggler anymore. She was being evaluated as a soldier in progress. That shift was subtle, but irreversible. 12. End of part 3. The point where breaking stops being possible. That night, Ava lay on her bunk longer than usual. Her body was exhausted, but her mind was quieter. Not peaceful, just less chaotic. She realized something uncomfortable. The training no longer felt like something happening to her. It felt like something she was now part of. Like she had crossed an invisible line without noticing. She stared at the ceiling, and instead of wondering how long she could survive, she wondered what she would become by the time it ended. Outside, the wind hit the base again. But it didn't feel harsh anymore. It felt familiar. Like everything else. The base didn't feel like it had changed. But Ava Reynolds had. Not in a dramatic way, not in a sudden transformation. It was quieter than that. Like pressure slowly turning coal into something harder, deeper, and impossible to ignore. She no longer arrived at training wondering if she could survive it. She arrived expecting it. That difference changed everything. 1. The calm before the real test. The morning formation was unusually silent. Even the air felt heavier. Sergeant Cole stood in front of the recruits longer than usual. No packing. No immediate commands. Just observation. Finally, he spoke. Today is evaluation. That single word changed the atmosphere instantly. Evaluation meant consequences. It meant separation. It meant the system would finally decide who belonged and who didn't. Ava exhaled slowly. Not fear. Focus. 2. The new version of fear. Fear had not disappeared. It had evolved. Ava didn't fear pain anymore. She didn't fear exhaustion. She feared failure of control. A single mistake now mattered more than a dozen successful drills. Because now she wasn't just surviving training. She was being measured inside it. Marcus stood beside her in formation. You ready? He asked quietly. Ava didn't hesitate. Yes. And she meant it. Not emotionally. Functionally. 3. The evaluation begins. The course was different this time. Less instruction. More autonomy. Less correction. More consequence. They were given objectives and time limits. And then released. Ava moved immediately. No hesitation. No overthinking. Her body already knew what to do. Rifle secure. Breathing steady. Steps measured. She wasn't fast like Marcus. She wasn't aggressive like others. But she was consistent. And consistency here was survival. 4. The moment pressure increases. Mid-evaluation, things shifted. Unexpected complications were introduced. Communication disrupted. Route changes. Simulated injuries. Stress escalation. Ava found herself separated from her group. Alone for the first time in days. Not physically alone. Operationally alone. She paused for half a second. then adjusted. No panic, just recalculation. That was new. Not confidence. Control. 5. The decision that defines everything. A simulated casualty appeared during the drill. A recruit on the ground. Time-sensitive scenario. Evacuation required. Ava reached him first. Marcus arrived seconds later. They both froze for a moment. Protocol conflicted with timing. One objective required continuation. Another required extraction. Marcus looked at her. "Go," he said quickly. "I'll handle this." Ava hesitated. "Just once." Then she shook her head. "No." She dropped her gear and helped him lift the recruit. Marcus blinked. "That's not the plan." Ava replied simply. "Plans change when people can't move." That was the moment something shifted. Not in the drill. In her. 6. The cost of the choice. They finished the objective late. Not failed, but delayed. That mattered. At the end of the exercise, Sergeant Cole reviewed results silently. He looked at Ava's report longer than others. Then he said, "You prioritized casualty over objective." Ava responded, "Yes, sir." A pause. "Why?" She didn't over-explain. "Because he was still alive." Silence. Cole studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. No praise. No punishment. Just acknowledgement. That was rarer than both. 7. The line between soldier and machine. That night, Marcus sat beside her outside the barracks. "You know that could have cost you ranking," he said. Ava shrugged slightly. "Probably." "Then why do it?" Ava looked ahead at the dark field. "Because I didn't come here to become perfect," she said. "I came here to become reliable." Marcus didn't answer immediately. Then he laughed quietly. "That's dangerous thinking here." Ava turned slightly. "Why?" "Because reliable people don't break under pressure." She paused. "That's the point." 8. The final phase begins. The next morning, everything intensified again. But differently. Less teaching. More expectation. They were no longer being trained like recruits. They were being tested like units. Ava noticed it immediately. Fewer explanations. Faster commands. Stricter evaluation. She adapted without resistance. Not because it was easy. Because she no longer saw alternatives. 9. The moment she fails differently. During a live simulation, Ava made a mistake. A small one. But visible. She corrected it within seconds. Normally, that would have ended it. But Cole didn't stop the exercise. He let it continue. That was new. Afterward, Marcus looked at her. "You didn't get pulled out," he said. Ava nodded slowly. "I noticed. That means they're watching you differently now." Ava understood. Mistakes were no longer disqualifiers. They were data. That was worse. And better. 10. The night before the final drill. The barracks were unusually quiet. No tension-filled jokes. No nervous laughter. Just silence that felt structured. Ava lay on her bunk. Eyes open. Body tired. Mind alert. She thought about everything that had changed. Not just in training. In her. She wasn't the same person who arrived. That girl would have quit by now. Or broken. Or both. Ava didn't feel broken. She felt rewritten. Not finished. But reshaped. 11. The final drill. No room for guesswork. The final exercise was announced at dawn. Real-time scenario simulation. High pressure, full coordination required. No reset, no retries. Ava stood at the starting point. Marcus beside her, Cole watching from distance. Begin came the command, and everything moved. Vast, chaotic, controlled only by reaction speed and discipline. Ava didn't think in full sentences anymore. Only decisions, movement, priorities. She adapted mid-flow, corrected errors instantly, adjusted strategy without hesitation. This was no longer training. This was execution. 12. The moment everything aligns. At one critical point, the scenario collapsed into complexity. Multiple objectives, conflicting priorities, time pressure increasing. Others hesitated. Ava didn't. She stepped forward, took command instinctively. Not loudly, not aggressively, but clearly. Move left, secure perimeter, we extract first. No one questioned her. They moved, because she wasn't guessing anymore. She was functioning. 13. End of drill, the silence after. When the drill ended, no one celebrated. They just stopped, breathing hard, covered in sweat, dust, and exhaustion. Cole approached slowly. He looked at the group, then at Ava. Long silence. Finally, you adapted under full pressure, he said. A pause. That is not common. Ava stood still, waiting. Cole nodded once. Pass. Just that. No ceremony. No emotion. But the meaning was clear. She had crossed the threshold. 14. Final moment, what she became. That night, Ava stood alone outside the barracks. The wind moved across the field again. Same wind. Different feeling. She wasn't the same girl who arrived months ago. That version had been shaped down, rebuilt, reinforced. Not erased. Refined. Marcus joined her briefly. You're quiet, he said. Ava nodded slightly. I'm thinking. About what? Ava looked at the open field. I don't feel like I survived this anymore, she said. Marcus frowned slightly. What do you feel like? Ava paused, then answered honestly. Like I became part of it. Marcus didn't respond, because there was nothing to correct. 15. Final end. Unbreakable isn't loud. Ava didn't become unbreakable because she never struggled. She became unbreakable because she stopped stopping. Because pain stopped being a signal to quit. Because fear stopped being a reason to retreat. And because somewhere between exhaustion, discipline, and repetition, she learned something the training was always trying to teach. Strength isn't what you feel. It's what remains when everything else is stripped away.